Welcome to the space between two lines. I'm Alex Saunders, and this is a space for real, honest conversations about fertility, pregnancy loss, and the journey to parenthood. Here, we hear the stories of people navigating the highs, the lows, and everything in between. A place to feel seen, understood, and less alone. Because every story matters, and so does yours. Welcome back to the space between two lines. I'm your host, Alex Saunders, and this episode is part 2 of a 3-part series shared across the first season of the podcast, where Rosie is interviewing me about my personal infertility journey. In this episode, we're talking about pregnancy loss and what it means to navigate pregnancy after loss, the fear, the grief, the hope, and the constant emotional balancing act that comes with it. This conversation is raw, honest, and deeply personal. I hope by sharing this part of my story, anyone who has experienced loss or is walking a similar path feels seen, supported, and a little less alone. This is a trigger warning that we will be discussing pregnancy loss and navigating pregnancy after loss. If the time isn't right for you to listen, please come back at a better time.
So today's episode, we're going to talk about pregnancy loss and pregnancy after loss.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's like a few trigger warnings on this episode. Do you want to just share the story of like how you found out you were pregnant for the second time and like what that looked like and how you felt?
Yeah, for sure. So if you want to know more about the process for us to get pregnant the first time with ovulation induction, go back to the first episode because I talk about that in a lot more detail. But basically, we were receiving support for our cycles through ovulation induction. We did one cycle that was unsuccessful, and then we moved into the second cycle, and we found out we were pregnant. So the way that cycle looked is we took hormones. It actually blew out a bit, as I've spoken about in our first episode. But when I did ovulate, we got told what days to have sex. From there, you have a 2-week wait. And then you go in and you have a blood test and, your fertility clinic will call you and tell you if you're pregnant or not. A lot of women will do a pregnancy test before that blood test because who could not? But I found this actually was beneficial for us as we were taking extra injections after ovulation and after we'd had sex that supported pregnancy. It was injecting a bit of HCG every 3 days, which sort of tricked your body into thinking it was pregnant, and our fertility clinic uses that because they think it helps with successful pregnancies. So knowing that I would have HCG in my system, which causes a positive pregnancy test, I couldn't do one because it could be a false positive, which would be heartbreaking. So the morning of my blood test, I did a pregnancy test and it came up positive, but I was still so unsure. Like I was second guessing myself. It's like, oh, it might be from the injections that I did. So I spiraled a little bit, but I remember Nick and I were going away. We were going away for the weekend. I think it was just like a little trip down the coast. And I remember I had these big grand plans because I thought I hadn't told Nick yet and I thought I was pregnant. I was like, oh, well, I'll find out and then I'll be able to surprise him. And we were literally just driving down the coast and they called. And she told me and I just started bawling my eyes out. And Nick's like, no way. So he knew. And it was just so beautiful. I remember I literally, makes me emotional thinking about it. I remember I cried for like half an hour. I couldn't believe it because at that point it had been over a year that we'd been trying to conceive. So it was just huge because it had taken us so long to get there. And I just couldn't believe it. And I remember we got our due date and it was on our wedding anniversary and I was just like, this is just everything, like the stars are aligned, like this is amazing. So that's how we found out we were pregnant. And then so with our fertility clinic, they monitor you very closely once you find out you're pregnant. So you have weekly blood tests. So I had a blood test. So I had my pregnancy blood test, had another blood test after that, and things were still looking good. And then I think I had a third blood test. And I remember, even though we'd had such a long journey to get to where we were, I think my whole thing was it was that the problem was we couldn't get pregnant. But once we got pregnant, like I just did not even think, I was just in this blissful state. I just did not even really, although that anxiety was there, I just was still kind of, wasn't really thinking like that something bad could happen. And I remember the fertility clinic called me after that third blood test. I think I've been close to 6 weeks pregnant. And I remember the tone in the nurse's voice. Like as soon as I heard her speaking, I was like, oh, something's not right. And then she explained to me that because your HCG is meant to double every couple of days. And mine had stopped. And my progesterone as well your progesterone needs to be at a certain level. And I think that had dropped as well. And she pretty much said to me that like it looked like I was going to have a miscarriage. And I remember at that time, still kind of, I was like, still, because I hadn't bled or anything, so I was still kind of like, oh, had this like little inkling of like hope that maybe they've got it wrong. I remember just saying to her, so what does this mean? And she's like, well, unfortunately, yeah, you're going to lose the pregnancy. And it was devastating. But it was also really hard to fathom again because it's like I knew the information before it happened. So I had to grieve in that moment and then almost wait to have a miscarriage and to lose the pregnancy. So I remember the days after that, I think Nick and I booked a weekend in Melbourne that weekend. I don't know whether we already had it booked in or we decided to do it based on what had happened. But I remember I was in Melbourne, I think it was a Saturday, and I just remember when I started bleeding, it was horrific. And it just I started spotting, and then it got really painful and heavy. And I'm really sorry, this is a huge trigger warning to anyone who, might have experienced this or, doesn't want to hear this. But I remember actually being in heaps and heaps of pain. I remember actually seeing it pass, and it was horrific, like so traumatic. I probably had heavy bleeding for like a week after that, and then had to have follow-up tests to make sure the HCG was out of my system. I was lucky that I kind of had I guess if you could have a straightforward pregnancy loss, I had a straightforward pregnancy loss. Like I didn't have to have any medical intervention, just over time it passed. But yeah, I just remember it was just the most heartbreaking experience because even though it was early, I know a lot of people like as soon as you see 2 lines on a pregnancy test, your whole life changes. And especially if that is something that you want more than anything else in the entire world and you would do anything for that or to have that, and you get it, and then that just gets taken away from you and you don't expect that it's going to get taken away from you, and it's just completely devastating. And our wedding anniversary is coming up in Feb, so the due date of our baby is coming up, and like that's going to be hard, and it's always going to be something that I'm going to remember now. But it just took me like those initial days, and that week was so sad. But I kind of just had to like sit in it and then keep going because I didn't really know what else to do. It's really shocking, and you just get a much deeper understanding for anyone who has gone through it. So it doesn't matter when it happens. It's really hard.
So when did you find out that you were having miscarriage to then when you had the miscarriage? How many days was that?
I think I waited about 3 days. And that, again, like your mind plays tricks on you and you think like, what if they've got it wrong? Like maybe my levels will go back up, which obviously they're not going to tell you something that's incorrect or that you do have a chance. But yeah, that time just wait. I don't know whether it's good or bad to know that information beforehand. I think it was good to know because let's just say I didn't and then I started bleeding, I probably would have ended up at ED, and then that would have been a whole traumatic experience. At least I kind of knew it was coming and I knew what it was, but still didn't make it any easier.
And what was the impact? So like obviously you've got a young child, you've got a husband who's also going through that. Like what was the impact on the household and your family through that time?
It was so hard. We were fortunate enough that I think that was the whole thing. When we went to Melbourne for the weekend, Ollie was staying with grandparents or someone was looking after him. So we had that time together. But the fall down and the days that led after that and trying to, as I said, I just had to kind of get on with things and trying to be a mum and going through the pain that I was going through. It was really challenging, and like it's really hard to be present with your kid when they're really little and they have no idea what's going on and they want your attention all the time and you're just bawling your eyes out. You don't want to get out of bed, but I guess they give you a purpose and like you have to get out of bed. You have no choice. You can't just sit in it. Yeah, you just have to get on with things. Some pressure on our relationship. I think I struggled a little bit because, again, it's similar to everything you go through with IVF, I think. Unless you actually are it's your body that's gone through it. And although like your partner, obviously it's just as traumatic for them and they go through like the emotional toll is really hard and it's really dark for them. I think when your body has to go through it all, I kind of had a bit of resentment I don't know whether it was resentment, but just that thought of like, you'll never really understand what I'm going through and how hard it is when like I have been growing something in my body and now my body's losing it, and the feelings of that your body's failing you and the guilt of what did you do wrong. Like I know, and I can't like specifically remember some examples, but I know it would have weighed on our relationship in little ways. It might not have been directly to do with that, but yeah, it's just, I guess after everything, it was just another thing left on top of us that we had to work through.
And then when do you feel like you were kind of ready to try again? Because that just, I mean, you talked consistently about just like keep going.
Yeah.
But like,
I think, and people might be able to relate to this, but when you are going through infertility, you just want to keep going. Like if someone says to you that you have to wait a month, that's like the worst news in the world. So for me, I just wanted to try again. I just wanted to instantly be pregnant again, which it doesn't work like that. But I don't know whether I was mentally ready for that or emotionally ready, but I just wanted to keep going. I think when you're so desperate for something and it's already been a year and a half and you're still, or, over a year and you're still in the same spot, and you feel like everyone around you is moving forward and you are just stuck, then you want it to happen. Like you want to keep going. Like I was ready immediately after it happened. Like I was like to the specialist, when can we start the next round kind of thing.
And when was that?
So I remember we had to have at least a cycle off. So we had the miscarriage and then I had to have wait a month of having a cycle, and then we could try it again the next cycle, start the hormones the next cycle. So I reckon it was maybe 4 to 6 weeks by the time, maybe 6 weeks by the time all of that process happened. And as I said, when I was off the hormones, I think I didn't realize, but having that forced break was actually the best thing that could have possibly happened. It really switched my mindset and also made me realize how much all of the hormones were affecting me and my personality and how I was feeling. So I think it was just really eye-opening for me. And the break was exactly what I needed to kind of move to that next phase.
Yeah. And then so you went through one more round of ovulation induction therapy and then that didn't work. And then how quickly did you move to IVF?
Pretty much straight away. So we made the decision, I know the round of ovulation induction was in August. So we would have found out maybe mid-August we weren't pregnant. And I would have started maybe mid-September on all of the hormones to start the egg collection. So we had to wait a few weeks, but it was pretty, happened.
And then you found out you're pregnant again. And was that an amazing feeling, or was that after everything you'd been through a feeling of fear? How did you, what was that like for you?
It was honestly really hard. And again, nothing that I could have prepared myself for. And I think something that a lot of women don't talk a lot about is the moment I saw those 2 lines, obviously there was so much joy, but there was just so much anxiety. And the first few weeks after that was just constantly waiting for bad news, because for over a year and a half, we'd been receiving bad news after bad news. And it was honestly, it's awful to say, but it's just one of the most it was one of the hardest periods of my life, because I was just so worried and just, I couldn't get myself out of this negative mind frame that something bad's going to happen. And it was really hard to lean in and to feel joy in that moment. It feels like a bit of a blur looking back now. And it wasn't until probably 11 weeks that I could start to actually be like, okay, this is feeling a bit more real. Still not having those really big feelings of joy, because I was just so scared. And I was also so scared that if I got excited about it, then something bad would happen. So yeah, it is really, really hard and so different to my first pregnancy. I think a lot of the excitement around those milestones and everything that comes with that is just stripped away from you.
Yeah. Did you have you been seeking any support through the last 16 weeks, or has that been different than the first pregnancy?
Yeah, so I've pretty much the whole way through, when I started, not the whole way through, but I've been seeing a psychologist for quite a while now, and they supported me through IVF, and I've seen them still. So they have supported me in early pregnancy. So that's something that I've leaned on. And that's probably it. In the first few weeks, we didn't really tell anyone, because again, when we lost the pregnancy, we told people, and then we had to tell them that we'd lost the pregnancy. And you're most likely going to tell your friends if something horrible like that happens, but at least you can kind of do it in your own time. Whereas, yeah, I just found that really challenging, telling people and then having to tell them that we've lost the pregnancy. So this time around, I was very isolated, really isolated myself. I didn't really see anyone. I think it just kind of worked out throughout that time. I didn't really see many people either. I was just kind of getting through week by week.
I mean, the journey is different for everyone, but I would say in general, the whole process just seems so isolating. I think that if I could describe my observations around it, that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
In every part, in fertility and infertility and loss.
Because at the time that it happens, you feel like you're the only one in the world going through it. And then I guess that I'm at an age that all of my friends are having babies. So whilst you're going through this, there's another pregnancy announcement, and you don't actually know what that person's gone through, but in your mind, it's another person that's just got pregnant, and I can't, sort of thing. So it is really isolating. Yeah, for sure.
So do you have any final advice for anyone who's going through pregnancy loss? It's such a big question.
It's a huge question. I'm not sure if I'd have any advice, but if you can be open about it, be open about it. Because there's so much stigma, I think, around pregnancy loss, the word miscarriage, and people will kind of turn away from it, or it's a bit of an elephant in the room. But I know from my own experience, opening up about it and talking about it has helped me. Not everyone can do that. Seek out psychological support if you need it. Set boundaries. Take a week off work if you need to take a week off work. Don't feel like you just have to keep going. You're allowed to sit in that space. And as I said, it doesn't matter when you have your loss. It hurts just as much, and it's just as heartbreaking, and it completely shatters your dreams. So sit with that. Don't feel like that you have to just move on. Sit with it, recognize it, and recognize that baby.
I think it's it all takes time too. And people move on way quicker than in general in life. I feel like people move on way quicker than you'll ever move on from whatever experience you're going through, right? Whether it's heartbreak, whether it's a death in the family, whether it's pregnancy loss, you kind of get that initial love and support, but just because other people move on straight away doesn't mean you have to move on.
No, and I wouldn't even say now that I'm fully healed from it. I'm not sure I'll ever be fully healed from it. It's such a huge thing and one of the hardest things I've been through. I think I feel so grateful that I had Oliver because he carried me through a lot of that, and a lot of the really, like on the really hard days, he really carried me. And I know a lot of people might not have that. They might be trying for their first baby. Like, it's hard to say, I don't know how you can ever really heal from something so devastating, but I guess we just try and move forward, and we try and be in the moment and the positive things around us, if you can find them in those moments.
This has been The Space Between Two Lines. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and register on our website to share your story. The link is in the bio. Until next time.